Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. We're tackling something pretty huge today, something that's been all over the news lately. AI.
AI.
But we're not, just going to talk about cool robots or the latest phone you can talk to.
Right, right.
This is about, well, the future of information itself. Like, who controls it?
Hmm.
How do we access it? And what does all that mean for power? Who has it? Who doesn't?
It really feels like we're at this turning point, right? I mean, you hear all this talk about an AI race between these big companies like OpenAI and Google.
Like a digital arms
Yeah,
race.
exactly.
And they're all trying to one-up each other with these super advanced algorithms. You've got OpenAI's ChatGPT doing that whole search thing. Then Google's got the Search Generative Experience, SGE.
Right, right.
And it's amazing what they can do. Like, ask a question, any question, and boom, you get this perfectly put together answer, all thanks to AI.
It's mind-blowing, really. Instead of wading through pages and pages of search results, you get this concise, clear answer. Almost like, having your own personal expert just summarizing everything for you.
It's super exciting, the potential, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, it makes you wonder, is this all happening, responsibly? What are the implications of handing so much control over information to just a handful of companies?
Yeah, that's a huge EE question because, let's be real, AI, it's not just about some lines of code.
Wow.
It's about shaping how we understand the world, how we see things, the choices these companies make, like OpenAI and Google,
Mhm.
the data they use, how they design those algorithms.
Yeah.
It has this ripple effect, It impacts global access to information, even how knowledge is produced and consumed.
So I was digging into the research you sent, and there's this newcomer I found, Justice AI. And they're taking a totally different approach to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Justice AI. And they're all about what they call decolonial intelligence, right?
Right.
And they've built this framework, the DIA framework.
Yeah.
And it really challenges how we normally think about building AI.
It's pretty revolutionary.
So let's break it down. This DIA framework, what makes it so different from what we're seeing from OpenAI and Google?
Well, the DIA framework is built on these core principles. First, it directly challenges this assumption, right, that Western ways of knowing are the only ones that are valid. So instead of just relying on data and perspectives from the Western world, Justice AI actively, seeks out and incorporates knowledge systems from indigenous communities and other non-Western cultures.
Wow, that's a major shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Because, let's face it, most AI development seems to be all about just churning through massive amounts of data from the internet,
Oh, yeah.
which can be, pretty Western-centric.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that can lead to some serious, serious blind spots. Justice AI is basically saying, hold on, there are all these incredible knowledge systems, these rich histories, ways of understanding the world that are being totally ignored. They believe, to create AI that's truly intelligent, truly beneficial, you have to expand the data sets. You have to consider multiple perspectives.
So it's not just about, being inclusive just for the sake of it.
Right.
It's about making AI better,
Yes.
more robust,
Yes.
building in that diversity of human knowledge.
Exactly. And this commitment to inclusivity, it goes even deeper. That second core principle of the DIA framework, it's about actively fighting bias. They're not just hoping for neutrality, they're literally building mechanisms into the system to find and mitigate biases that can creep into the data or the algorithms.
That's crucial because, we've all seen how biased algorithms can lead to unfair outcomes. Think of those facial recognition systems, how they often struggle to accurately identify people of color.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's
Got
a
it.
problem. Just SSAI gets that. They know that if you're not actively addressing bias, you're just letting the inequalities of our world get replicated, maybe even amplified by these powerful technologies.
And they're trying to build in these safeguards, right?
Yes.
Proactively. To stop that from happening.
Exactly.
And then there's that third element of the DIA framework, the one that really makes them stand out, that commitment to transparency.
Huge.
It's interesting because, we hear a lot about black box AI, right? Even the developers themselves don't really get how the algorithms are making decisions.
Yeah, it's a bit scary.
And that lack of transparency is, well, it can be really problematic,
Mhm.
especially when these systems are making decisions that impact, people's actual lives.
Yeah.
Justice AI is doing the opposite. They're all about being as open as possible so people can understand how the AI works, where the data is coming from, and how it's making those decisions.
It's almost like they're inviting scrutiny,
Yeah.
Hey, We want you to understand how this all works. We're open to feedback.
Exactly. And that kind of openness is rare in the tech world,
Yeah.
especially with something as complex and potentially, lucrative as AI.
It really is.
So we've got these two very different models emerging. On one side, we have OpenAI and Google, and they're pushing the limits of AI, no doubt, but they're operating within that, more traditional framework focused on speed, efficiency, winning the market.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Justice AI. And they're saying, hold up, let's take a breath, broaden our perspective. They want to build a system that actually reflects our values, values of justice and equity.
Right. It forces us to think about the choices we're making as a society when it comes to tech.
Yeah.
Do we just jump on every new gadget, every powerful algorithm without asking, like, what are the assumptions behind this? What could the consequences be?
Big questions.
Mm-hmm.
And Justice AI is giving us a different way to think about it, a vision for what the future of AI could be like.
It's a vision worth exploring. This deep dive, it's not just about, understanding the technical side of AI. It's about understanding what choices we have, what power we have as individuals, as a society, to shape where this technology goes.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about, but it's crucial to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Because AI, it's not some abstract thing anymore. It's already impacting our world in huge ways.
It's already here.
It's here.
And the choices we make now, they'll determine what that world will look like.
So that's where we are. We've got this AI race going on, but Justice AI is kind of, throwing a wrench into the whole thing. They're challenging the status quo with that DIA framework.
Exactly.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to dig deeper into how Justice AI is putting these principles into action.
It gets really interesting.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that whole AI race thing and how Justice AI is kind of like shaking things up with their different approach,
It's not just about being different, though. It's about actively building something better. That DIA framework, it's all about reflecting a much wider range of human knowledge and values.
And one of those key principles, you said, is this idea of centering non-Western epistemologies. I love that idea.
It's powerful.
It is. But what does that even look like in practice? It's one thing to say it, but how do they actually do it?
You're right. It's not just about, throwing in a couple extra data points from different cultures,
Yeah.
Justice AI is going way deeper. They're working directly with indigenous communities.
Oh, wow.
Learning from those knowledge systems and figuring out how to actually incorporate those perspectives into the core of the AI.
So it's kind of like building a bridge between these worlds that have been, kept separate for so long.
Exactly, like weaving together different ways of knowing, creating something that's so much richer than what we've seen before.
Can you give me a concrete example?
Right.
How would this work in a real-world situation?
Sure. Imagine an AI system designed to help with, say, environmental conservation. Normally, you'd train it on data from, Western scientific studies, satellite images, climate models.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
Right, all essential stuff. But what if you also added in the knowledge of indigenous communities? The people who have actually been living in and caring for these environments for, centuries.
Ah, yeah. They have this deep, deep understanding of the land, the plants, the animals, how everything's connected.
Exactly. And that knowledge has been passed down, through generations, often orally. It's not always written down in some academic journal or database.
So Justice AI is trying to tap into that, right? Bring that knowledge into how the AI makes decisions.
That's it. They're working with elders, storytellers, knowledge keepers to gather information about traditional land management practices, plant medicines, sustainable hunting techniques.
That's amazing. It's like giving the AI this whole library of knowledge that Western science hasn't even really acknowledged.
Right. And by weaving together these different ways of knowing, the AI can develop this much more complete understanding of the environment. And then, make smarter decisions about conservation.
It makes so much sense. It's not just about being, quote unquote, inclusive. It's about actually tapping into this vast amount of knowledge that could help us solve these huge problems we're facing.
Absolutely. And that's just one tiny example. The possibilities are endless when you think about how to integrate non-Western epistemologies into AI.
Yeah, it's a whole new way of thinking about things. It's not just about tweaking algorithms. It's about changing how we approach knowledge and problem solving in general.
Right. It's not always easy, though. It requires humility, a willingness to learn from different cultures, and being committed to building respectful relationships.
This long-term project for sure.
For sure. But, like, the potential payoff, it's huge. Not just for AI, but for how we understand ourselves,
Huh.
our place in the world.
And that second principle, combating bias, that's also super important, especially with AI. We've all heard those stories about algorithms that like reinforce stereotypes and all that.
Oh, yeah. It's a real danger.
Yeah. And just as AI understands that bias can like sneak into AI systems in all these subtle ways,
It's sneaky.
even if you have like good intentions, right?
Mhm.
If the data set's skewed or the algorithm is designed in a way that reflects, existing biases, you end up with results that can be discriminatory.
Absolutely. It's not always intentional, but that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
So Justice AI has this multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
First, they're like super careful about the data they use. They're not just grabbing whatever's out there on the internet. They're curating their data sets really thoughtfully, making sure they represent diverse populations and perspectives.
So it's not about quantity, it's about the quality of the data.
Exactly. And they're also developing new algorithms that are built specifically to detect and reduce bias. They're not just using the same old algorithms that, we already know have problems.
So they're like hacking the system from the inside.
Haha, kind of. They're working with, experts in social justice, ethics, anti-bias training, trying to build those safeguards right into the AI.
And I imagine that requires constant monitoring, right? Like tweaking things as you go. Bias can pop up in all these unexpected ways.
Oh, for sure. It's not a one-time fix. It's this ongoing process of testing and refining, looking for any sign of bias, and then making those adjustments.
Which brings us to that third pillar of the DIA framework,
Yeah.
transparency.
Right.
So important.
It's where everything comes together, really. Transparency is about accountability, inviting scrutiny and ultimately building trust.
Yeah, it's almost radical how open they are.
Yeah.
Especially compared to how a lot of tech companies operate. They usually guard their algorithms like they're top secret government files.
Haha, right. But Justice AI is different. They believe people deserve to know how these systems work.
Right.
They're working towards making their algorithms and data sets open source as much as possible.
Wow. So anyone can like look under the hood and see how everything works.
Exactly. It allows for that scrutiny, feedback, even collaboration. People can point out problems, suggest solutions.
It's almost like a community-driven approach to AI development.
Kind of. They recognize that building ethical AI, it's not a solo mission. You need that collective effort, that willingness to listen, learn from others, and, that commitment to transparency and accountability.
Now, all this sounds fantastic, but I'm wondering, like, how does this work in the real world? The tech industry is super competitive, right?
Yeah.
Can Justice AI actually go up against giants like OpenAI and Google and still stick to these ethical standards? Isn't that a huge disadvantage?
It's a great question. It's a big challenge for sure. They're not just trying to make a cool product. They're
Yeah.
trying to change the entire game.
And they're going up against companies with tons of money, massive amounts of data, and, this relentless focus on profit.
It's true. And those companies, they move fast. New updates, new features all the time.
So how does Justice AI keep up? How do they make sure they're doing things the right way, but also, staying competitive?
It's a balancing act for sure. They might not always be the first ones out there with the newest, shiniest tool.
But they're in it for the long haul.
Exactly. They're betting that in the long run, people are going to care about transparency, fairness, inclusivity. They think people will choose to use AI systems that align with their values, even if it means being a little more patient.
That's a bold move.
It is.
But I think a lot of people are ready for that,
Me too. I think people are really starting to realize the potential dangers of AI if it's not controlled, right? The biases, the privacy issues, the potential for it to be used for bad things.
Just because AI gives me hope, honestly.
Yeah, me too. It's a vision for the future where AI actually empowers people, helps bridge divides, makes the world more just and equitable.
I'm seriously impressed by what they're doing. It's inspiring to see a company that's not just chasing profits, but actually trying to do some good in the world.
That's what makes them so interesting. It's not just about the tech, it's about the values, the vision, that commitment to making a better future for everyone.
Okay, so we've really explored these first two pillars of the DIA framework, that whole idea of centering non-Western epistemologies and combating bias. And I mean, wow, Justice AI is pushing the boundaries here. But we still have that third pillar to dig into, right? Transparency.
Yes,
And that's where it all kind of comes together, right?
it does.
It's about holding these systems accountable, being open to scrutiny, and building that trust.
Exactly.
And that transparency, that's what we're going to dive into next. So we're back, and we're diving into this whole idea of transparency with Justice AI and their DIA framework. It's kind of refreshing, honestly, in this tech world where everyone's so secretive.
Yeah, I know, right? You'd think transparency would be a no-brainer.
Right, like, duh, be open and honest. But it's just not that common, especially when you're talking about something as complex and, potentially lucrative as AI.
For sure. So, like, how does Justice AI actually make transparency work? What does it look like in practice?
Okay, so for them, it starts with the data. They're committed to being totally upfront about where their data comes from, how it's collected, all that.
So no more hiding behind those vague terms like, what is it, proprietary algorithms, machine learning magic.
Exactly. Just as AI is like, nope, here's the data. Here's what we're doing with it. And here are the steps we're taking to deal with any potential biases. They're even trying to make their data sets open source whenever they can.
Wow, that's huge. That means researchers, ethicists, even just everyday people can actually look at the data and hold Justice AI accountable.
Exactly. And that accountability thing is crucial because it keeps all the power from being concentrated in the hands of just a few big tech companies.
It's like democratizing AI development, letting the public participate, Have some oversight.
Okay, so they're transparent about the data. But what about those algorithms? I mean, those can be so complicated, even for experts.
True, but Justice AI is trying to make their algorithms as, understandable as possible.
Okay.
They use techniques that let humans actually grasp the logic behind the AI's decisions. So you're not just accepting the output blindly.
So it's not just about getting an answer, it's about understanding how the AI got there and whether that reasoning makes sense, whether it's fair.
Exactly. And this whole transparency thing around the algorithms, it allows for better testing, debugging, improvements. Experts can actually identify potential biases or flaws in the system and then work on fixing them.
It's like inviting the whole world to join in on this process of building ethical AI.
I love that. Because for Justice AI, transparency isn't just some, PR stunt. It's about building actual trust with users, encouraging collaboration, and ultimately creating this more responsible and equitable AI ecosystem.
It's a pretty powerful vision, and it really makes you think about how things are usually done in tech.
No, absolutely. For so long, we've just accepted this idea that technology is this big, mysterious black box,
Right.
that we just have to trust these big tech companies to do the right thing. But Justice AI is showing us a different path. They're proving that transparency and accountability aren't just some optional add-ons. They're absolutely essential for building AI that actually serves humanity.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Justice AI and their whole DIA framework, I'm feeling, I don't know, cautiously optimistic. There's definitely a ton of work to do, a lot of challenges ahead, but it's super inspiring to see a company really pushing the boundaries of what's possible, both in terms of technology and ethics.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a good reminder that we don't have to just settle for the way things are.
Right.
We can demand more from the companies that are shaping our digital world. We can choose to support organizations like Justice AI that are prioritizing these values, transparency, fairness, and inclusivity.
Because at the end of the day, the future of AI isn't going to be decided by some small group in Silicon Valley.
Right.
It's something we're all creating together. It's about the choices we make, the technologies we support, even the conversations we have.
So keep learning, keep asking those tough questions, and don't be afraid to demand better. The future of AI is in our hands.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Justice AI. We hope it's given you a lot to think about, maybe even inspired you to learn more. And until next time, keep exploring.